Hello and welcome to another finally episode of The Games Afoot. I'm Eddie Webb. I've been playing Sherlock Holmes video games on Twitch off and on for a while now. Just wrapped up one of them, and then my laptop died. Just the motherboard was just completely fried, just out of nowhere. I was in the middle of playing a game of Blood Bowl, and it just died. So it took a few weeks to take it to the repair shop, looked at it, get repaired, realized it was not going to get repaired cheaply, buy a new laptop, get that laptop set up, blah, blah. Now we are here. So appreciate all of your patience in me getting everything sorted out. So let's see where we're at. Luckily, it did die at a pretty good spot, actually. I was able to kind of get its last game wrapped up, which was played a game Consulting Detective. And so now we're going to move into a bigger space, which is kind of the Frogwares catalog. And for those of you who don't know, Frogwares is actually an independent Ukrainian video game company, and it has a subsidiary office in Dublin, Ireland. But it was originally created by a bunch of French expatriates, hence where the name comes from. So it has been around for 20 years, which is actually a hell of a run for a video game studio, to be honest. But they started making Sherlock Holmes games in 2002 with The Mystery of the Mummy. And then from then on, they've made a whole bunch of Sherlock Holmes video games. So these days, if you're looking at a Sherlock Holmes video game, odds are really good you're probably thinking about a Frogwares game. And the kinds of things they've done and how they made their games has changed really dramatically over the course of 18 years of releasing games. Originally, I was thinking about possibly playing through these in order, but I decided against that for a couple of reasons. The first one is that The Mystery of the Mummy doesn't really run on my system. It is so old that the Steam version I have doesn't actually run on my system anymore. Which is okay, because Mystery of the Mummy is crap. So if I ever get it running, I may play a little bit of it just to show you how bad this game is. It's not good. Then there's The Case of the Silver Earring, which is actually the first game that really put kind of Frogwares on the map, as it were. And I may go ahead and get into that at some point. But it's pretty close to the Serrated Scalpel game in the sense of it's going to look a lot like a traditional adventure game. So I kind of want to just skip over that. The ones where 2007 is where the Frogwares style as we understand it now starts to grow. And that year, two different games came out, which was Sherlock Holmes Awakens and Sherlock Holmes Nemesis, or Sherlock Holmes versus Arsène Lupin. Now, I'm going to hold off on Awakened a bit because it is also a Cthulhu crossover game. It's a horror game. And I might be doing something with some other folks because it's a horror game, kind of focus on a horror stream. So I'm going to actually start off with Nemesis, which is good because Nemesis is one of the few games I actually haven't finished in the Frogwares catalog because it's really fucking hard. So I have Mr. Walkthrough to kind of help us out with. So now that I'm ramped up, nice to see a lot of the old crew back. Elves of Zion, Yodan, Jay Gray, Infinite G. It's all great to see you guys again. A couple things I want to mention is that if you aren't aware, a lot of the Frogwares games, in fact, I think the entire Sherlock Holmes Frogwares catalog right now is 75% off on Steam. And I think they might be reasonably priced on GOG as well right now because of their spring sale. And separately, more exciting for me, just today, Frogwares announced Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 in 2021, which is the next game. And as you will see kind of as I play through these, they do kind of rough trilogies. So you have Awakens, Nemesis, and then versus Jack the Ripper. That's kind of the first trilogy of games. Then they kind of sort of rebooted it, and that's where you get Testament, Devil's Daughter, and the other one I'm forgetting right now. So chapter one's going to be kind of, I think, the start of the next trilogy, and it's also Sherlock Holmes when he's 21 when he's first starting out, so it's completely unexplored, not completely unexplored territory. Sherlock Holmes movie does that a little, but it's relatively unexplored territory compared to the more mature, more established Holmes we see in these other games. But either here nor there, I do appreciate you, Infinite G, for actually telling me about that, because I didn't know that happened. I happen to own them all because I buy them pretty frequently. As you probably have noticed, this is a little bit of a different setup for me because I have a new laptop. Because the previous games I could play in a window, so I could just kind of toss them all up on my monitor and play there. This is a full screen game, so in order for me to see the chat, I have the chat kind of up here, so I'll be looking down a little bit. But also because it's a full screen game, you won't see as much of me on the screen. This is a fully voiced game, I do have subtitles on. You're not going to be able to read some subtitles because my face could clip some subtitles, but you should be able to hear everything. If there's something going on and you can't follow it, let me know and I'll go ahead and repeat it. And also, I'll do what I did last time, which is I'll read the documents as well, so that way everyone's getting all the audio and visual at the same time. So let us go ahead and get things started. Transition over to Mr. Black Screen here, and we will start it up. Hopefully it starts showing up on that screen. There it is. There we go. It is a bit of a lag. First things first. I keep calling it Sherlock Holmes Nemesis. That is what it was called in the U.S. and I believe Canada. Definitely the U.S. Everywhere else, the official name of the game is Sherlock Holmes versus Arsène Lupin. So let's talk a little bit about Arsène Lupin. Arsène Lupin is a French character that was written contemporaneous to the original Conan Doyle stories. Written in France, he's a master thief. And after the first handful of stories became very popular, the writer of Arsène Lupin actually started writing Sherlock Holmes into the stories without talking to Conan Doyle or any of his agents. Just said, I'm doing this. This is happening. He got hit with the Victorian equivalent of a cease and desist. Basically, a law lawyer contacts him, hey, you can't use those rights. And so the writer changed the name, and I am not kidding at all, to Sherlock Holmes. And this was fine. Sherlock Holmes is perfectly fine. So there actually was an entire book of Arsène Lupin books called Arsène Lupin versus Sherlock Holmes. Now the characterization of Sherlock Holmes is not actually equivalent to Sherlock Holmes because it was obviously a different character. Interesting side point is when the Arsène Lupin stories fell into the public domain in France and then Sherlock Holmes was ruled to be public domain in England, there was a movement to possibly rewrite it back to Sherlock Holmes, and a lot of the French enthusiasts said no. Sherlock Holmes is a character that we value and treasure. So Sherlock Holmes is here to stay. So officially, this is one of the only crossovers between these two characters. Obviously, that's not the case. But this is not based in any way on Arsène Lupin versus Sherlock Holmes. This is a completely original story, as far as I know. As we go through, I'll try to pick up bits and pieces. I'm not as familiar with Arsène Lupin as I am with Sherlock Holmes. I've only read about 3 or 4 of the books. What pieces I did do enough research before I played this game, so I can talk about, give some context for it. And the other thing also you'll notice is I prefer the French pronunciation of Lupin. You will hear in the game Lupin a lot. I believe also when there's a Japanese series called Lupin the Third, and I believe that in the English translation they also went with the Lupin pronunciation. I tend to prefer Lupin. It's just for the 4 years of French I grew up. So, let me double check my options here real quick. Just want to make sure mainly that my graphics detail. I have graphics detail down pretty low. I just don't want to push too hard. You'll hear the fan probably kick up. It is a pretty good system, but it does have a pretty loud fan. I'm going to be getting a new headset for next time, so that I actually can move the mic away from the laptop a bit more and have closer to my mouth. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started. Dan, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm going to butcher it. They're going to butcher it even more. if French is the first language, I apologize in advance for how bad this is going to be. Okay. And yeah, Jay's talking about how the author of this event, the RC novels, tried to write a detective series and it just didn't work. You're undertaking to portray Sherlock Holmes, a famous consulting detective of 221B Baker Street, London. During this case, you must demonstrate both sagacity and calm. Observe well the items around you. Don't hesitate to click on them once you have the required information. You will obtain comments that will help you in your hunt. Do not forget to interrogate anybody who may be able to inform you. Choose the right questions and pay heed to their answers. Assure yourself that you aren't caught short by your adversary, Arsène Lupin, who will throw a number of challenges at you which will demand you are subtle and methodical. Thus, in the course of your investigations, you will have need of pencil and paper. Certain riddles will require reflection words of your hero. It will be challenging. At certain points, you will need to type a keyword in response to a question in order to continue the adventure. You are at liberty to consult your notes in order to help yourself. Do not forget to read the documents that you have gathered and glance through Sherlock's notes. They are all important. So this is an interesting point. This is one of the only Frogware games I know of that actually says you should write shit down. Awakened, I don't remember there being that much need for pencil and paper, and the Silver Earring, all the information was relatively tracked, so I don't know why this particular one, but it is very puzzly. I do remember that, and that was my frustrations with it. There's a lot of puzzles in here, and puzzles are not skippable. That's a feature that comes with later ones, I believe, specifically because of this game. So the Frogware is modeled pretty heavily evolved after this. This is like the last kind of big transition point. So the model hadn't really changed too much, like I said before, from Serrated Scalpel. A lot of adventure gamey outside 3D perspective look was not done yet. This is 3D perspective. And also how you track and how the mystery works, starting to transition right around this game. The reason why I want to kind of pick this one up. In order to advance your inquest, you will have at your disposition plans and maps which will permit you to teleport by clicking on given points. You may equally make your character run by double-clicking with the left mouse button. England's honor is at stake. Do not disappoint your adversary. Can you guys hear that music okay? Okay, cool. Yeah, there's definitely lots of violin. The New Adventure of Sherlock Holmes. And as you can see, this is definitely a 3D game. You're going to move through spaces, and this is actually the enhanced version. The original version, you could only go through in this kind of 3D perspective. Afterwards, a lot of people liked the more classic view, and so they actually rewrote it so that you can see it from two different perspectives, 3D perspective and also from a more traditional kind of hotspot clicking on a screen view. The game will walk you through all of that. So this is in 1895, so this is after the Great Hiatus. Sherlock Holmes came back from Reichenbach Falls, has been in business for a few years now.
It looks to be the beginning of a lovely day, Holmes. There's nothing like beginning the week with a sunny Monday, with nothing more pressing to do than to see what came in the post. Would you care to take a ride up the Thames today?
I think not, Watson.
Listen, Holmes, your mood has been getting progressively worse for the past 2 weeks. I know you, and I am certain that something is bothering you. It wouldn't be bad news from Switzerland, would it?
We would already be on a boat heading towards the continent were that the case, my dear Watson.
Very well, then, what is it? Let me guess. For the past 2 weeks, the papers have talked of nothing other than this French thief, Arsène Lupin. He's been making all of the police officers on the continent look like complete idiots. You're taking an obvious pleasure out of reading these articles.
My dear Watson.
I've put my finger on it, haven't I? I know you well. Something tells me that you will not entertain talk of this Lupin for some time. Do you recall his latest feat? Using an alias, he seduced a young Italian princess in order to rob her of a priceless set of diamond jewelry that once belonged to the Nemesis. These jewels were to be part of the lady's dowry on the occasion of her marriage to the son of a wealthy, influential Sicilian. Finally, our friend, having committed his crime, left word for the local press explaining that there was no other way for the charming lass to escape a marriage of convenience with, I quote, an uncultivated and uncouth boor without the least refinement. Since then, the lady has been confined to a convent, and rumour has it that the two outraged fathers have jointly offered a sum of countless millions of liras for the head, the rest of the body being optional, of the man who is responsible for their dishonour. Are you acquainted with the reputation of the Italian criminal milieu? Why, another letter from the zoo about those missing birds, as if we were going to be running around the whole of London chasing chickens. As I was saying, are you acquainted with the reputation of the Italian criminal milieu? This Arsène Lupin must be in hiding somewhere, surrounded by bottles of champagne and stolen treasures. How foolhardy and arrogant. Oh, these French. However, he didn't pursue this foolishness to the point of risking stepping onto British soil.
Has the cat got your tongue, Watson? What? Whatever is the matter with you, Watson? Pray tell.
This letter on the table. Holmes, read it.
You control Sherlock Holmes. To move the game's left-click destination you want, double-click will make him run. So one of the things about this game is you will, unlike previous games we've played, it will bounce back and forth control between Sherlock Holmes and Watson. This is actually something that's relatively common to Frogware games. And in fact, the Silver Earring makes really good use of why you'd switch between those two characters. This game forces that switch a little more frequently, and again, you can see through in the tutorial here. Jay Gray points out that while Lupin and Holmes often are paired together in games like this, kind of like, homages or pastiches, Fantomas is not actually used as often, which is another kind of contemporary French villain. And that's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that. I've not read too much of Fantomas, but I do know that there's a lineage between that character and the Phantom of the Opera, and there was a Phantom of the Opera and Sherlock Holmes pastiche that was written 80s-ish, I want to say, late 80s or 90s. West End Horror, I believe, was the one. So there's at least some kind of connection there. Anyhow, as you can see right now, we are in this kind of pulled out view. It's going to look very similar to the games we played previously. We'll be able to switch that in a moment. Let's just follow the directions right now. In this very long letter, I'm going to read to you now. Dear Mr. Holmes, before I begin, please excuse any grammatical or spelling errors that you might notice. Your language isn't my native tongue, as I come from the continent, France to be exact. In addition, my singular subjects of conversation, whether they be oral or written, are the most exquisite food and wine, the noblest arts, and the sublimest women. The whole world knows that you, people of her most gracious majesty, do not produce or even discern any manifestation of aesthetic intelligence and civilization that sets men apart from beasts. Thus, the opportunities to practice your language are sporadic and brief. What use is there to linger with a lackey or maid? But look, I see I have made a mistake, or rather an execrable mistranslation. I said, you people of her most gracious blah blah blah. I should have said, the people of blah 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 other than you. How can I include you in this half-ruddy-faced, half-pallid crowd reeking of brine and cheap beer? You stand apart, an icon. Having followed your exploits for some time and being interested in your unusual personality, I started to see in you a man of intelligence, ingenuity, and singular refinement. The incredible results of your activities and the manner in which you achieved them are marked with the seal of genius. Believe me, despite the lamentable opinion that I hold of the inhabitants of your island, I have for you an admiration without limit, which reached an apogee recently when I discovered you have a French ancestor. Pause. That's actually true. I believe I mentioned this in one of the previous streams, but Holmes actually has some undefined lineage to the painter Verner, who is a French painter. So, and he has alluded to in the original stories that he has some French in his family tree. And also he pretty regularly quotes and speaks French, amongst other languages, but French is relatively common quoting inside the canon. So that's actually completely legitimate. Continue. What unlucky star has brought you to the world elsewhere than in the motherland I call my own, that should have been your own? Perhaps the gods desire that your presence on this island bring up the intellectual average that was so low it bordered on the absurd. The business that brings me to write this letter may bring an answer to this question. You see, events without antecedents will occur in London in the week to come, beginning on the very night of the day in which you read this letter. The purpose of these events is to bring to light a fraud, the arrogance and vanity of the English. Enough of the haughty, boring composure that the English present us when passion should be freely expressed. Enough of the derisive confidence in England's impregnability, which is displayed by all of your politicians and soldiers. The English fortresses being protected by seas serving as moats. Enough of your supposed symbols of majesty and grandeur of spirit, which are, in fact, merely the fruits of looting and plundering. England has measured the world by its stingy, superior smile for far too long. Thus I, Arsène Lupin, has pledged to get rid of this smile. To that end, in the week to come, I pledge to steal 5 of the most representational symbols of the alleged English grandeur here in London. Once these auspicious achievements have been accomplished, I will exhibit the trophies for the world to see and will reveal the smallness of a nation incapable of preserving its pride. England will become the laughingstock of all nations, from the largest to the smallest, and will have to swallow its pride and lower its head for millennia to come. Imagine these self-righteous and perfidious faces who ordinarily parade the fact that they are one of Her Majesty's people will henceforth hide their origin. Being English will no longer be grounds for pride, but rather shame. In brief, the debts will be paid. You are perhaps asking yourself why I have chosen to share with you my vision, which many who don't know me will consider mad. After all, if my former praises are well-founded, you are certainly the only person in England capable of stopping my plan. Like myself, you are fully aware of the inefficiency and flagrant lack of imagination that plagues your police service. The reason for this letter is eminently narcissistic. No exceptional artist deserves to produce their work for an uncultured public, incapable of appreciating the true value of his prowess and talent. In you I have found the ideal spectator, and I wish for you to follow the stages of my consecration, yes, step by step. In fact, I would almost wish for you to put yourself in my path, and in vain to stop me from committing these thefts, but you are a busy man who doesn't like defeat. What a shame. If, despite everything, the adventure tempts you anyway, I shall leave you a few verses that deal with tonight's target. All across France, everyone knows, in the blind's kingdom you need only one eye for the crown. You treat us like blind men, it shows. 'Twas a one-eyed, one-armed man that brought us down. It is true that we failed, though we tried again. Our fate was nailed, his immortality our pain. Again and pain don't rhyme, but anyway. One of the Spanish capes, the detestable pride that hangs around you like drapes, our suffering made you snide. An adversary came along in order to reserve victory. We were put in the wrong and the day made history. Save the pain and defeat, the worst in this game is that the hero we did meet carries a French name. Clearly did vengeance sound. What I have in mind for this traitor, sitting at his master's feet like a hound, is to be run aground. I don't even know how that works. But anyway, in my honor tonight to hands, I will break free of bindings so that all may understand our victory will take wing. Arsène Latino. That is important.
Holmes, this is truly unbelievable. Surely this cannot be taken seriously.
It's possible, Watson, that this letter is nothing but a prank. However, a small chance exists that both the challenge and the threat are real.
What will you do?
First, I'm going to enjoy the breakfast Mrs. Hudson has prepared. If you would be so good, Watson, as to clarify some of the riddles in the letter. Firstly, if Arsène Lupin is actually the author, as he states, why does he sign with another name? When it comes to the poem, even if an answer seems straightforward, we must be quite certain. What would the target of tonight's theft be if this letter turns out to be accurate? We have one day to find the solution and to take preventative measures. You could go see Barnes, the bookstore in Glentworth Street. Surely they'll have something that will be informative.
And Holmes just fucks up. So now we are controlling Watson. And you'll see that basically the icon changes. The pipe is your generic pointer. You can
Holmes'
look at things.
violin.
It will change for things you do, so you don't have to get the verbs like the original one. This is the exit, the two little feet. Yes, this is verbose in terms of the letter, and that's not. The letter certainly is in Lupin's style. Now the game's got me doing it. Lupin's style. He definitely does steal for excitement, for adventure. He's much more of an adrenaline junkie, as we call it in modern times. He doesn't need the money usually. Every once in a while, he'll pull a job just because he needs the cash, but more often than not, it's for the thrill of it. And he absolutely steals things from people he thinks are just too uptight and need to be taken down a peg. So it's not quite Robin Hood, because he absolutely does steal from the rich and keep for himself, but his targets are generally selected by people he thinks are worthy of losing something. So he is definitely the kind of original thief of the heart of gold in a lot of respects. And he does have a lot of national pride. So I completely buy that extremely long, very verbose letter. Yes, Lupin has been a Persona in the Persona games. Holmes has not. Take that. The Japanese love Lupin. I don't know if it's been a long time or relatively recent, but I know like there was not the last one, the one before of their Super Sentai series was actually all kind of Lupin themed. And then of course the Persona 5 is very heavily inspired by Lupin and the Lupin stories. So we're going to go to the bookshop, which I believe is down here.
I have no interest in going there.
Oh, okay, it's back this way then. Super Sentai Lupin. It's a very long title, but it's actually they share it with it's basically there's a group of three that are the thieves, and there's a group of three that are the cops, and they're constantly fighting each other. And of course, the third faction comes in, and they kind of have to work together. And over time, they end up becoming friends. But it's genuinely kind of fun. Talk to this guy.
No, I have nothing to ask him.
Well then, I don't want to talk to this guy. So that zoom through we saw earlier, it really just kind of hit the major locations we're going to have around the Baker Street area. So I believe the bookstore's kind of over this way. Thank you, yes. Got to Sentai Lupin Ranger versus Getsetsu Sentai Pat Ranger. I probably screwed that up, but yes, it is that series. Let's see, this is Lentworth Street, which is the street we wanted. The camera is gonna keep cutting around. As I mentioned before, this is the mode they actually put into the game later. It's not great. Gets the job done.
Poor Barnes should hire a cleaning lady. Oh, what a mess.
Something else interesting about these games that you'll see more if I get a chance to play more of them is that one of the reasons why they do these trilogies is that they'll make the first game and they'll do a lot of the Baker Street area, the Baker Street rooms, the Baker Street immediate area, the character models of Holmes and Watson, and then they'll just reuse them for the next two games. Just maybe spruce them up a little bit. But like, for example, there's a lot of the games that are set around Whitechapel because for the Jack the Ripper game, the Whitechapel area is really built out. It's actually really, really big. And so you just kind of keep shoving reasons to go back to Whitechapel. Even the games don't really... There are other parts of London you can go to, but they kind of just keep forcing it because they keep reusing those locations. And that's pretty common in video game design, particularly in a series like this. If you're trying to make a game every couple of years, reusing assets like that is a huge, huge help when you're trying to make a game. So like this bookstore, I've seen in a few different games now.
Gunrith, Kudwilm, Lizrit, Sublilha.
That seems normal. You're going to line up just right to talk to him.
Good day, Barnes.
Hello, Dr. Watson. How are you? I didn't hear you enter.
Are you busy? Am I disturbing you?
Not at all. I was researching, but if you came to see me, it must be that you're looking for something specific. Perhaps I can help you?
And you see that in this game, when you have conversation options, you have some bits up here where it actually gives you the kind of topics you can ask about.
A very strange affair, bewildering even, has brought me to see you. An affair involving a Spanish cape and a one-eyed, one-armed man.
Most certainly. You will find the works dealing with naval history on one of the shelves somewhere.
Thank you. I'll go look.
I mean, you can find naval history. As Bruce points out. Yes, Watson's going to Usenet. Yes, this is the Victorian version of Google. And there's a piece of paper there that I can't touch. So now I need to figure out... The one thing that admittedly kind of frustrates me about this era of games is that the camera angles are constantly changing. It makes it a little hard to orient yourself. So now we're going to do a good old-fashioned pixel hunt as we try to find naval history. Yes, searching bookshelves. Searching bookshelves is basically core Sherlock Holmes gameplay. I mean, let's be honest. I can't think of a single Sherlock Holmes game where at some point in time you're not looking at bookshelves. Where's that? It's over here. Is it one of these? You know what? Actually, I think I know what happens here. That's very infringing. I mean, a lot of games do have some form of looking at bookshelves, and I mean it's a mystery game, and ultimately mystery games are about information. You're trying to acquire it, trying to locate it, and the most common way that people can think of to get information is to look in a book. So, I mean, it's understandable. It's just amusing to me. Okay. I'm going to remember which key it is. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to one of the other things. This is the actual original default mode, which is the kind of 3D searching. And this works a little differently in the sense of when you get close to something that you can click on, then a icon will appear. And sometimes it's just frankly easier to navigate using this method. And this leads to a fun trick, which I don't know if I'll get to tonight, but if you are at all familiar with Sherlock Holmes and memes, here we go. Upon his return, he was astounded, many with his taste for raw meat and his sudden onslaught of salivation when, I quote his housekeeper, local college students or uniformed conscripts passed in front of the windows of the living room. He died 2 years later due to a fatal fall when attempting to battle the weathercock atop Edinburgh's Bell Tower with a sculpture that had made out of clay and briar chips representing the supposed offspring of the Duke of Kent and a hedgehog. Horatio Nelson, 1st Viscount Nelson, born in Burnham Thorpe, Norfolk in 1758, we owe to Admiral Nelson some of the beautiful pages of the Royal Navy's history. Charged with intercepting Bonaparte en route for Egypt, he conquered the French fleet in the Battle of the Nile in 1798. Not content to rest on his laurels, in 1799 he recaptured Naples from the revolutionaries and was made Duke of Bronte in 1800. The death of his unrivaled seaman, who had already given his body in service of country he had one arm amputated and lost sight in one eye, was his crowning moment. He died triumphing over Admiral Villeneuve during the Battle of Trafalgar, despite being inferior in terms of numbers, but though the grace of courage and audacity without compare. A representative tale of Nelson occurred during a former battle when the flag captain warned him that the commander was signaling retreat. Admiral Nelson, convinced they were victorious, held a telescope to his blind eye and said, "I really do not see the signal," thus committed to battle, coming out victorious. Luckily for him, his joke, and then it continues.
Here's my book, The Great English Sailors. As it happens, I found this book, and...
Excuse me, my dear Dr. Watson, but I am in need of tranquility.
Well, farewell, Barnes.
Alright, so I'm going to switch back to this. So a couple things happened there. The first is relevant if you have played the previous game. Sherlock Holmes Awakens, like I said, came out the same year as this game, and this is one of the few times where the Frogwares games are really heavily entwined. Not in terms of plot. You could play this game and could perfectly understand it without it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have played this one at first. But you're going to see references to the previous games. And Awaken, the key point, spoiler alert for a game that's 13 years old, is that it involves Cthulhu. So this is kind of the ramifications of Barnes having had to deal with some of the consequences of the plot in Awakened. Also, when I go back to Baker Street, there's another Easter egg in there as well, which I'll point out. The other piece is that the Frogwares games are... Remember how when we were playing Serrated Scalpel, I and lots of people in chat were constantly going, "Oh my god, this is so evocative of the original canon. It's very respectful of the material. It feels very authentic, very real." You're not going to get that as much with the Frogwares games. The first few games were genuinely just badly researched. There's reasons why I don't play the Riddle of the Mummy, just because it's just god-awful. And they get better as they go along, but there certainly are weird gaps, and it's one of the reasons why it's more interesting perhaps to talk about the Frogwares games because I can say, hey, here's where it's not right. And this is one of the first points. Watson loves naval history. Loves naval history. When Holmes is coked out of his mind and Watson's trying to just get, relax for a bit, he's reading naval history. So Watson would have known this. He would not have had to go to a bookstore to find out about bloody Nelson. He would have known Nelson immediately. But we're trying to start the game off. We're trying to give Watson something to do. I understand the game design as to why this choice was made, but canonically, no, Watson would be completely aware of Horatio Nelson. All right, let us head back out and back to Holmes. Also, as you can tell, this is relatively early on. This is the only second game this company's ever made using 3D like this. So not only is the camera angle weird, like I mentioned before, but also the pathing is weird. You're going to see a lot of clicking on people and models reorienting to go in a certain way. We saw earlier when we were talking to Barnes where Watson was very close to him and had to step back and turn around to actually talk to him because they had to line up for the cinematic that came later. Resident Evil is a good example, actually. It's the same kind of rough era where you were getting kind of in-engine cinematics, but it involved very precise lining up of things, and so you have weird kind of stop-starts, running-stopping. It's not as smooth as it came probably, I'd say around 2010-11 is when we started seeing smoother kind of transitions, and now we just don't even think about it. It's much more common. So this is still pretty, it's not infancy, but certainly early. So before I talk to Holmes, let me show you the other thing I was talking about. If you look over here, yeah, look at that.
What? This accursed statue is still here? I've asked Mrs. Hudson to remove it for us.
I don't know if you heard it. It maybe gave you a little growl when you clicked on it. That statue is pretty much the big MacGuffin of Awakened. And I'm not really spoiling too much of Awakened by telling you this stuff, because it's like, at this point in time, part of the reason that people talk about Awakened is it's the game with Sherlock Holmes meets Cthulhu. So, I mean, I pretty much told you everything that you would find from the back of the cover or from a casual review of the game. So I'm not going to get into any other real kind of Awakened spoilers. But I'm going to point out occasionally, oh, this is because of what happened in Awakened. All right, Holmes, here's your book.
Now tell me, Watson, what progress have you made? Have you found the meaning of the mysterious signature?
Who is Arseno Lutino? I believe that's probably an anagram. Oh, good, I can type this out, okay.
It's an anagram, Holmes.
Yes.
The letters in Arseno Lutino can be used to spell out Horatio Nelson.
That's a welcome confirmation. No doubt the target for the theft is somehow connected with the Battle of Trafalgar, won by Admiral Lord Nelson at the expense of the French. Nelson, who lost an eye and an arm in battle, has a statue high atop a column in Trafalgar Square. It says that the object of the theft is sitting at his master's feet. There's nothing to steal on this column. We have a map of London here somewhere. Let's see if we can find a site of interest near Trafalgar Square.
The map of London is over here, I believe. Oh, no, okay. This is one of the weird things is, let's talk about 221B for a second, okay? There's, no, the rooms 221B have been described very well in the canon, but the orientation and placement of things is not. So there are a lot of different kind of interpretations of the layout of these rooms. And they can get pretty varied. Generally speaking, Frogwares goes for something like this, which is pretty close to what you would see in, like, say, the 1980s Sherlock Holmes British television series. Watson and Holmes have two adjoining rooms, and then this kind of big central room area before the staircase going down. There are other interpretations of it, and Frogwares for a long time used this kind of room orientation for a chunk of their games, but I've just played a bunch of their recent trilogy where they move everything around, and so like Holmes has like more libraries over here, and the map is actually here, but I remember now I think it's over here. So everything's a little different, which is kind of interesting. Oh, maybe that's not the map. Okay, but where is the map? It should be the map. Okay, well. No, the bullet holes, for example, are not in this version of the house.
Treaty on Cornish, the Celtic language of the Cornish people. And here, medieval pottery. Holmes has an interesting taste in reading.
And yeah, it is a shame. And that's one of the bits and pieces where it's like, it's just not quite as authentic. Again, I'm not going to begrudge it. I mean, it gets a lot. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Here they are. My bad. I'm full of crap. They're right here. Let's step back. There you see, they are. My mistake. I thought they were not. Probably because I'm used to this view, and I didn't see them there. Let me check Watson's desk. Because I guess my point is like, they do try. Frogwares is definitely trying.
I found it at last.
That's not where
the map of London.
So, according to you, what is there to steal in Trafalgar Square? Show me on the map, Watson.
So Infantry once won a case of Wells Bombardier beer, answering that Nelson won the Battle of Trafalgar. Wells wouldn't ship the beer to the U.S., so you had to ship to friends in Cambridge. Nice. That's nice. Very nice of you.
So, according to you, what is there to steal in Trafalgar Square? Show me on the map, Watson.
Map. Okay. So, we have Barnes Bookstore, Stephen Baker Street. Map of London. Okay. There's west, south, center, and east. Tower of London, Bank of England, St. Paul's Cathedral. I admit my knowledge of London is a little rusty. Justice Court, Trafalgar Square, okay.
The only location visible is the National Gallery of Painting, which faces the column.
Why not? Our man wants to steal a painting, but which one? Watson, shall we head out? Let's take a tour of the National Gallery. While you find us a hansom, I'll send a message to Lestrade to have him join us.
Lestrade. We've talked about the Lestrade thing before. I won't go into that again. I just disagree. I think it's Lestrade. So I'm going to find a cab. But it does mean we are going to get to the thing I wanted to show you guys. Lestrade. Oh, just a cab. What are the odds? How do I... There we go. Nope. Yes, talk to him. Walk back over here.
Ah, Lamb, good timing. Can you give myself and my friend Sherlock a lift?
With pleasure, Dr. Watson. The mistress, Miss Bromsby, gave me the day off. I'll wait for you.
Okay. If you are familiar with the meme Creepy Watson, this is the location. I will prove it to you. Watson is here. I will move. Oh wait, I have to go through this first.
Good
Sorry.
afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome to the National Gallery of Painting. As it's such a lovely day outside, you're the only visitors at the moment, and likely will be for the whole day, as the minimum number of people for a guided tour is...
We're not here to visit the museum, young man. My name is Sherlock Holmes, and this is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson.
Sherlock Holmes, the famous detective?
Indeed, I have reason to believe that a theft is being planned that will take place here, perhaps as early as today.
A robbery?
I'm not certain, but there is a good reason to believe that is the case. We have contacted Inspector Lestrade at Scotland Yard, and he should be joining us momentarily. Meanwhile, rest assured that we are here in an official capacity. In the meantime, you can certainly help us. One of the paintings will play a part in the matter, but I don't yet know exactly which one. I do, however, have a few clues that should tell something to a specialist like yourself.
Ah, yes, of course. As it happens, I've only been working here for 3 days. Actually, I'm an apprentice, and my duties here are essentially administrative.
Okay, so I apologize for getting you guys' hopes up. So we have to go through this first a little bit.
Pray tell, would I be correct in deducing that the elder of the two men that we can see up there is the director of the museum?
Yes, that is Sir Pointer. He could certainly assist you better than I, but at the moment he's terribly occupied and will be for some time.
But the location that you are proposing is unworthy of my work. All of my pieces are hymns to color and light. It's the very stars, the sun that you want to extinguish.
Please understand, dear sir, the entrance hall is reserved for temporary exhibitions. We are able to add more lighting.
In that case, you would have to provide lanterns across the whole length of the ceiling, and to use the most refined oil possible. Definitely not gas. And mirrors to reflect the light, along with some canvases in basic colors to bring out the contrasts.
We will do all that we possibly can.
Nevertheless, I insist that a number of my works must be on the main floor next to the large pieces.
But our rooms are already full, and, as you know, each has its specific subject. Too much modernism?
How can there be too much modernism? Modernism doesn't exist. Only art exists. Art is timeless. Art is cosmic.
Well, sir, perhaps we should continue this conversation in my office.
That accent was just all over the place. Wow. Okay, so Yudan was asking why Sherlock Holmes shot the wall. The short answer is boredom. He was bored. He got his pistol out and shot Victoria, Regina, or VR into the wall purely because he was bored. The Onyx Path tells me that Creepy Watson was patched out. That might be true. We'll find out. That may be the case. But if it is, either way, I'll explain why Creepy Watson was able then. Yes, Elsa Zion, that quarantine stash is pretty amazing. I just trimmed recently. I have growing a nice quarantine beard, but it's got too unwieldy. And don't worry, Electrum. I used to use the jokes. Not at all a problem. Don't worry about it.
Then you must certainly have a ledger of the works that are shown in the museum, with a description of each painting.
Yes, Sir Pointer entrusted it to my care this morning so I could familiarize myself with the collection, but I lost it.
Of course you did.
I know, I make a rather feeble archivist, but while I was doing a tour of the museum, the painting that Mr. Pointer is now dealing with arrived, along with cases full of canvases that he had to quickly inventory.
The case of the missing ledger. What do you make of it, Watson? Listen, Mr.
Palinur, sir.
Palinur, my friend and I will make our way through the museum in order to find the ledger. If you lost it while touring the museum and it wasn't back on the desk, then it must be in one of the galleries. Stay here and we will return to see you when we have found it, and not a word of it to the director.
Certainly, sir. With many thanks. I will continue to do my inventory and await you.
Tell me, young man, would you happen to have a blueprint of the building in order to facilitate the task at hand?
Ah, yes, yes. Where did I put it? Oh, yes, here it is.
Farewell, Palinor.
Okay. Do. Okay, so we have the National Gallery, the museum. So we check all the different things. Oh, we can just jump. Nice. Okay. I did not know that was a thing we could do. That's fine though. Let's go back to the entrance hall. Back into this mode. Okay, yeah. He is indeed capable of walking. He will follow after you now. Originally, this was not the case. In the pre-remastered version of this, Watson stood still because it is actually really hard to do this. To have a character follow you like this is actually a little tricky to do. So what they did originally was Watson would just be behind you. So you turn around, you walk forward, you walk back, and Watson would just be there. And that's where the creepy Watson thing came from. But as Ian points out, or sorry, as the Onyx Path points out, that has been changed. So, boo. I can't do that again. That's fine. Yuden, yeah, that whole conversation we saw over here, there's obviously there's a game design reason for it. Certainly there are games that exist where conversation is there for color, but generally speaking, you're not going to overhear a conversation between two people unless it's relevant. That's something that actually some of the later Progress games do, where you can actually explicitly eavesdrop on people and would just say, oh, there's nothing interesting in this conversation, or it'd be very, very short. To have a conversation that long, obviously that artist or the art director or that tree or all something need to be something we need to engage with. Actually, I am going to switch back to this. I'm going to check this out.
The painter who was conversing with the director has such character, to the point of taking some of it out on this poor plant.
Yeah, he had character. Yeah, really bad accent. Alright, let's go here. Start methodically. Open the door.
I said I didn't want to be disturbed.
Oh, alright, it's your office, right? Never mind. I don't want to talk to you anyway.
The Spanish Painters Gallery.
This is the Spanish Painters Gallery.
La Tela Real, by the great Spanish master Diego Velázquez, 1599 to 1660, painted from the golden century of Spain. It depicts a royal boar hunt.
I believe you can look at every one of these paintings and get like a little bio like that. We're not going to go through that entirely. That's just a pretty good stuff. And it's pretty good information. But let's just stick to finding the ledger for right now. I don't think we need to know it at the... Oh my god, that's awful.
The Adoration of the Name of Jesus.
And it's really bad exposition.
1641 to 1614. Spanish painter from Crete, belonging to the Mannerist school.
So the French paintings... Aha! The ledger.
There, it seems that we've found the famous ledger. It's written in shorthand, and there are hundreds of entries. Let's bring it to the archivist.
Let's do this, do that, do that. Oh, I want to talk to this guy. There we go. It's older police level resolution. Nice. Oh yeah, hang on, I gotta...
Farewell, Palinor.
I gotta figure out how to do inventory in this game. Here we go.
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Here is your ledger, my friend.
You found it! Many thanks. You won't say anything to Sir Pointer?
Rest assured, are you familiar with how the entries are written? Everything seems to be abbreviated.
I understand how to locate a thematic group and how to read a description, but I am struggling with the location codes.
It's better than nothing at the moment. We're searching for a painting that has a connection to the Battle of Trafalgar.
Depicting what exactly?
According to this poem, it could be...
Okay. So let's go to our documents. Let's try Admiral Villain if...
Are you sure? It means nothing to
okay.
me, Mr. Holmes.
Alright, let's go back to this. So let's go to our threats. Go to the poem. When I crowned truce, I climbed in and chose was the one I who brought us down. It's true that we failed, that we tried again. Our fate was nailed, his our mortality, our pain. One of the Spanish capes, detestable pride that hangs around you like drapes, our suffering made you snide. Our adversary came along, but we were put in the wrong and damaged. It's got to be that events. What if this is called something? I think I may have spelled it wrong. Pilleneuve. Pilleneuve.
Are you sure? It means nothing to me, Mr. Holmes.
Okay. I'm gonna take a quick peeky peek at the walkthrough. For those of you who are not familiar with this stream, I have no shame in using walkthroughs, particularly again on this game. It is brutal. Oh wow. It forms a ship or boat. That was the answer. This is kind of a transitional area where it's unfair.
Yes, Mr. Holmes?
Again, this is kind of that midpoint. So like the first game we looked at was 1982, and we looked at Exalted Detective was kind of a similar period. Silver Earring, like I mentioned, is kind of the latter half of that pure adventure game, rough puzzles era. Awakened was a much simpler game in that respect, and so this is kind of I don't want to say step backwards, but it was people felt it wasn't puzzly enough, and so this is kind of the last gasp of that particular style of design. Jack the Ripper is harder in different ways, but it's a little more kind of finding its own feet, and then of course the next trilogy become a very new, distinct thing, and it really becomes Frogwares really finding their feet and moving things in a new direction. This is kind of the Frogwares era, so they figured things out. They've actually learned how to make Sherlock Holmes games that are good, but they're still drawing from the past. Then the next set are going to be very much forward-thinking. How do we reinvent and move forward with how to make detective games?
It might refer to a boat. Its master was Admiral Nelson, and the thief wanted to run it aground. Moreover, the boat would have a French name.
Wait, I have a suggestion. A very popular painting, symbolic even, the Fighting Temeraire, a Turner. In this painting, Turner is described as having mastered painting techniques, and it is one of the most beautiful English paintings of all time. The subject, a boat by the French name of Temeraire, was involved in the Battle of Trafalgar and distinguished itself by protecting Victory, the flagship on board which was...
Victory, did you say?
Yes, Admiral Nelson was on board. Temeraire received a special distinction, but I am not certain of which. The painting shows it being towed to the breaker's yard, I believe.
The Fighting Tremere. Jeez.
Where would I find it?
I don't know. You would have to search through the English works of this century near the west section of the gallery.
My thanks, Palinor. Come, Watson, let's take a look at the painting.
Okay. Map. I don't know what the hotkey for map is. I'll figure it out some way. What's in the gallery? So it's Spanish, French, English. That's not a boat. You know, I've actually never played the Nancy Drew series from Interactive. I probably should at some point. Yeah. Roll for initiative. Holmes is flanking. Okay, so it's not in this portion of the gallery. Actually, I think it might be here. I think I see it. I think I see it. I think it's this one.
A river scene with a Dutch yacht by Van der Capelle.
Is this one?
A coast scene, Jan van der Capelle. Amsterdam, 1626 to 1679.
Must be in the...
A terrible naval battle scene by Ludolf Baskhuyzen.
Wow! Damn, Holmes.
Willem van der Velde, a Dutch painter who dedicated his talent to the sea.
Okay. Ah, there we are.
Here's what I've been looking for. The Fighting Temeraire. Splendid. What do you think?
I agree, it's splendid. The existence of this painting would seem to give credit to this whole affair.
As long as this painting remains on this wall, this letter, even if it is eloquent and provocative, is nothing more than a letter. It is possible that all of this could be a hoax with no substance whatsoever. We will know soon enough, as the theft will have to take place tonight.
We must warn the museum's director, Holmes.
You are correct, Watson. Shall we?
Then we're gonna go back to the director's office.
Fantastic! Superb!
There, Maestro. I believe that everything is settled.
This collaboration will be my crowning glory, my masterpiece. Merci!
I have finished the inventory of the works of art, Director. Oh, and I have the pleasure of introducing the great detective Sherlock Holmes and his companion, Dr. Watson.
Good day, gentlemen. It's with pleasure that I welcome you to our gallery. I trust that you are here for pleasure and not business.
I am afraid that is not the case.
Oh,
When it is no longer a matter of art, the artist must make his excuses. Messieurs, until we meet again, no need to accompany me. I know the way.
my apologies, gentlemen. Have you been waiting long?
Mr. Palinor was able to answer all of our most urgent questions. Tell me, who was that man who just left?
That was Horace Valmont, a French painter. One of the best, seemingly. His letters of recommendation come from some of the grandest salons in Paris.
A Frenchman? Let's take a look, Watson.
Yes, he's very avant-garde. He heard that we were showing the works of modern painters during our temporary exhibitions. He has loaned us a number of paintings and has promised to donate those that have the greatest success to the museum.
Lestrade, just in time. And the Frenchman, Watson?
Gone?
Director, this is Inspector Lestrade from Scotland Yard. Lestrade, this is the Director of the National Gallery, Sir Pointer, and his assistant, Mr. Palinor. Lestrade, would you have your constable on duty guard the entrance and make sure that nobody comes into the museum? Director, is there anything else?
No, but
If you would care to follow me, I'll show you what the motivation behind all of this is. The reason for this little gathering is this letter that I received at my lodgings this morning. Without getting into too much detail, it claims that this painting, the Fighting Temeraire, will be stolen tonight.
Pardon?
There now. It's because of a letter that you've disturbed me. You believe that?
I would never have taken the liberty to disturb you if this letter, the authenticity of which I must admit hasn't been completely confirmed, was not written by the one and only Arsène Lupin.
Arsène Lupin?
Arsène Lupin?
Us? Arsenal? Who? Lou? What?
Arsène Lupin, the most wanted cat burglar in the world. We will know soon enough whether or not this letter is a fake, or if I had reason to disturb you, Lestrade. But you must understand that we couldn't take even the slightest chance.
Perhaps. Why not simply put this thing under lock and key in the bank or at Scotland Yard?
We cannot risk storing the painting in an improper environment or to entrust it to anyone who calls it a thing.
All that would achieve would be to shift the problem. This painting is priceless. Beware he who would harm it. What I propose, Lestrade, is to do a tour of the museum with Sir Pointer in order to check any possible points of break and entry, and leave 2 men on duty here tonight. In addition, Director, you must close the museum to the public and not let anyone else in.
If you feel it's necessary.
And you, Holmes?
I'll pass by tomorrow at dawn. We'll know then what we're up against. Should the unthinkable have occurred, I insist that nothing is touched until I arrive. Is that clear? Let's be off, Watson.
Listen, Inspector, I have a lot of work to take care of. It would be better if I leave you to do a tour by yourself. You are, after all, a professional. Here are the keys to all of the locked doors. If you need me, I'll be in my office.
Well, I best inspect the museum to find any of Lupin's possible exits, including mice holes.
Oh, this is interesting. I'm not familiar of any other instances where you actually control Lestrade. So that's actually pretty cool. So we do have a theory. The voice acting for the French character is so bad, it's almost obvious. And I'm using a bit of meta-knowledge here, but this is a studio of French expatriates. I feel like they would not get the French accent that badly wrong unless it was an intentional reason. So I'm suspecting that this artist is probably actually Lupin in disguise. It's a Frenchman pretending to be a very badly accented French person. There's a certain kind of double logic to it. But enough of that. We're gonna walk around and look at stuff. I mean, it's fair. Holmes would probably see through a bad French accent, but I guess you make the argument that he maybe wasn't listening.
Nothing to report.
I don't know. I may be overthinking this. I may be hoping that there's a reason for it instead of just bad voice acting. I should have Lestrade look at the tree. Just make sure there's something in here. Why don't you come back and talk to them in a minute, because I don't think anything we talk to them right now. I may have to switch to my clicky mouse. I've been trying to avoid that because it is very loud. Clicky mouse. But this touchpad is not quite working for me, so it's... Good old mouse and WASD. Which, interestingly, I've not actually used on this laptop yet, so...
No exits on this side, nothing to report.
Okay. There's gonna be Lestrade looking for a whole lot of nothing here. And it's funny, like, as I'm doing this...
No exits on this side, nothing to report.
This is actually interesting for a couple of reasons. It's forcing the player to actually examine the whole location, which for this style of game makes sense.
No, no exits on this side. Nothing to report.
And also, it makes sense for Lestrade to do this because Lestrade's going to fuck this up.
No exits on this side.
Nothing
to report.
Right, I got that. Oh, hey, shift makes you run faster. So we've done all that, we've done all that. Nothing here. Did all this, did all that, did all that.
There is a possible entry. If someone wanted to descend from the roof here, he'd need a lot of time, and it wouldn't be a quiet business. But I'd be wise to leave a man on duty here, and he will signal the alarm at any suspicious movement coming from the roof. Arsène Lupin. It's you and I now.
Spoiler alert, it's not really. So sorry, Lestrade. These knobs are colored weirdly. It's like there's
It's
textures.
dark in this box room. Good. No windows. No possible entry.
I mean, look at that. It's so flat. It's like the lighting is off on that knob or something. It's just kind of weird.
No. No exits on this side. Nothing to report.
I think that's everything. Let me pull up the map real quick. Map. Oh. I guess Lestrade doesn't have the map.
I will make sure there are no windows.
Do your work. I will draw a map for you, Inspector.
Don't get a headache from thinking too hard.
Wow, okay. You're a jerk. Do I have to pick up the map?
I will make sure there are no windows, and therefore ways in. Here.
That's an awkward sentence.
Do your work. I will draw a map for you, Inspector.
So do that. Gives to me the map. Okay, maybe I missed something.
We need a cannon to force this door down. The lock is too big to be jimmied, and I'll leave a man on duty in place. If Lupin does come, it won't be that way. Wait for tonight. There. The director and his underling have left. Time for us to play now. It could be that this whole robbery is nothing but nonsense. If not, we're prepared. And this Lupin will play right into our hands. I'll lock the main door to the museum, and you will be locked in. Jeffries is on duty in Trafalgar Square, and the yard is nearby. Nothing to worry about there. The doors leading in will be locked, but you will each have everything you need to open them. Stay hidden and cover your light so you cannot be seen from the roof. You, Lockhart, will be stationed near the painting itself. At the least provocation, go down to the entrance and sound the alarm. The walls are too thick, so you will have to go down for your whistle to be heard. In case of real trouble, be sure to fire with deadly accuracy. Because if you even graze one of the paintings, your great-grandchildren will still be paying off your debts. Finally, you'll just have to be content with your lanterns. Gas is too expensive. Let's go, men. Keep your wits about you. You'll be relieved at 4 a.m.
Later. There's a train. A train with gas. suspense. Also gas.
Go on, you cantankerous codger. You have work to do.
You're right, Holmes. The constable below was indeed asked to deliver us a letter. It's from Lestrade.
Nothing good can come from such urgency.
Indeed, Holmes. This time, without doubt, the painting has disappeared. According to what he's written, they've turned the National Gallery upside down looking for it. Our presence is required immediately.
Well, Watson, the game is afoot.
Should we not have enlisted more men from the force to protect the painting?
I think that a whole brigade could not have stopped Lupin. And, of course, we can now be certain that it was he who was behind the theft. First and foremost, the police have a city and lives to protect, and we must respect that. Watson, a hansom will be hard to find at this hour, and Billy, our page, is sick. Would you be so good as to flag one down while I take a moment to reread this letter?
Yesterday, I was a doctor, and now I've become a valet.
So, a couple things. One, very brief reference to Billy the Page, who's an extremely minor Holmes character, but Holmes has a page. Well, it's unclear whether the page works for Holmes or works for Mrs. Hudson, but 221 Baker Street has a page named Billy, who's a very young page. He is referenced twice, I want to say, maybe, in the canon. Once as Billy and once as just the boy. Just about every adaptation forgets to mention Billy, so I mean, it points for them for referencing, hey, Billy, the character who would normally do this thing, is not here because he is sick. So, conveniently written out, could have easily just skipped over that, and very few people would have noticed. Nice touch, I like that. Yuna mentions that it is nice that that's a nice big museum, and I think if I click on every one of those paintings, Holmes is a line for them. If I really wanted to go through them all, I mean, it is nicely done. And except for the one really sludgy one, it looks like they got some pretty decent 2007 era res graphics for the paintings. So it's a nice little place to explore. Again, didn't need to go into that kind of detail. It's cool that they did. And yeah, this version of Lestrade is a jerk. The rebooted version of Lestrade's not as bad. But this one's just straight up an asshole. And it's good a cab. Again. Minor points. Watson pronounced it valet. I don't know if this changed, but I know, like, for the Jeeves and Wooster's books, which are Edwardian, it is pronounced valet. I don't know if that's a regional thing, if it's a time thing, if it's one's a mistake and the other one's not. There's no cab. Well, this is awkward. No cab. There it is. Okay. But yeah, I don't know if there's a reason or distinction for I just always valid.
Got a light?
No, sorry.
Is it Sherlock Holmes who lives in these digs here?
Indeed.
Know him?
I do have that honour. I have been of some assistance to him on occasion. Like locating hansoms, for instance.
I say, you're his valet. So tell me, does your master pay well then? I bet you're not above winning a bob or two, am I right? Listen, my friend, word has it that your boss is going to have a right fright tonight at the Picture Museum.
How?
Shh, listen, my good man. If you want to fill your pockets, here's my card. Piers Urquhart Allen, that's my name. Independent reporter's the game. Spill the beans about his biz, and I'll pay you well. Look for me in one of the pubs round here. You can't miss me.
If Holmes finds out that the press is onto this business, he'll be in an explosive mood. Best to avoid speaking about it.
Piers Urquhart Allen. Let's talk a little bit about Sherlock Holmes in the press. Holmes is not a big fan of the press, of papers. He finds them useful, Don't get me wrong. He knows the different papers by their typeface to the point where he can actually determine when a letter was trimmed in Han Baskerville's, where bits of the letter were cut out and pasted into a note anonymously informing him something. He could tell which paper it was as a result of that. But his actual relationship with reporters and news is generally does not like it. He is openly worked in news manipulation in at least one story, and is distrustful of reporters as a general rule. He finds them useful, but doesn't actually like them very much. So, that tracks.
Ah, a hansom. Now to find Holmes and make our way to the National Gallery.
You've arrived at last, Holmes. We haven't touched anything while we were waiting, except for a ladder which we needed to climb onto the roof. You must have received my message. The painting was stolen.
Jay, thanks for clarifying. Yeah, apparently it's French versus English for valet versus valet.
Did your men see anything?
To tell you the truth, barely anything. There was nothing they could do. The only thing we know for certain is there were two people of athletic build who perpetrated this crime. We don't know if the burglars stole anything other than the painting in question, as they completely redecorated the museum with the paintings of a French artist that were at the entrance to the museum. The paintings that were on the walls are now crammed in the director's office.
That's one thing actually I did forget to mention. I was going to say before, but I got distracted by Valet and Valet. The earlier on, someone mentioned that the letter at the beginning was very indicative of the Riddler from Batman, and then we saw the little kind of balloon with gas and the train with gas. These are all very kind of super villainy tactics. And it's not inconsistent with Lupin's methods. The concept of the over-elaborate criminal plan to try to make something miraculous happen stems from this tradition, and certainly stems and became popularized, if not created, by the Arsène Lupin stories. So, something, double the triple takes. There was an entire story based around how Lupin said that he was going to escape in 2 months, and then 1 month in, actually, his team broke him out. He went back to prison because that wasn't the right time to escape. He had double and triple fake outs and like false clues to throw people off the track of what the actual plan was. So these overly elaborate, almost Rube Goldberg style of criminal plans definitely is connected to and evocative of Arsène Lupin. So that definitely, again, tracks. It's probably tracking a little more Silver Age supervillain here right now than I would expect, but it's not off. It's just perhaps trying to sell this a little easier to an audience who may be not familiar with this character.
Do you have any idea what happened?
Well, not really. I haven't managed to figure it out. We know that the two men exited through the window in the restoration workshop, and that the second man entered through there. But the first man was already in the museum before his accomplice. Yet I had a man in the restoration workshop all yesterday afternoon, and he only left for a minute in order to hear my orders. At no time could the first man have entered through the window. We would have either seen or heard him. The men on the premises confirm they didn't see anyone pass through the entrance until the alarm was sounded, and those two are the only possibilities. How did this man get into the museum, I ask you?
When you have eliminated the impossible, Lestrade, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Where are the director and his assistant?
They're both in the office. Go gently with the director. He's close to having a fit. By the way, I noticed some traces of paint or something all over. I've asked everyone to avoid trampling on them until you've had a chance to examine them.
You're making wonderful progress, Lestrade.
Well, I'll go question the neighbours to see if anyone might have seen a 17th century boat descend from the roof.
Watson, accompany Inspector Lestrade. Check out the roof and help out with the interrogations. Be on the lookout for the slightest detail could gain us some precious time.
You can count on me, Holmes.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that maybe the assistant might be connected to this somehow. But I'm going to go back to this. 'Cause again, this method, at least in this area, it's just easier to move around this way. Take a look. These paintings all seem like the same ones. Ah, here we go, paint.
The paint tracks come from the interior of the museum and stop there. It's curious, but I'd wager that the man who left these footprints rested here a moment while facing the wall and looking at something. Yet these paintings aren't exceptional in the least.
That is interesting. And I'm not getting any hot spots. I mean, look up. Honestly, when you get right on top of it, the pixelization's not too bad, considering. Does Lupin have accomplices? Kind of. Not a consistent cast. I mean, so you don't have like a... there's a Watson-like narrator character that Lupin occasionally confides in, but it's not as consistent as Watson and Holmes. It's like some stories are dictated by this accomplished character, some are written by Lupin himself. A lot of the stories hinge on whether you don't know who the narrator is until later on in the story. There's a woman he's worked with on a couple of occasions that actually is just slowly corrupted to crime. But as far as I know, at least as far as I've read, it doesn't have a consistent kind of like gang. But he does work with other people.
Ah, Mr. Holmes, such a tragedy. Have you seen what these crooks have done to my museum? Paintings of incalculable value thrown in a heap like hay in a haystack. And the Fighting Temeraire.
Now, calm down, Director. Do you know if they took anything other than this painting?
The director and I are in the middle of doing an inventory of all the paintings that were moved. We are not certain yet.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good. We'll be here if you have any further questions. Come, Palinor, back to the inventory.
Can I borrow this lamp?
Unfortunately not. This room is poorly lit, and we need it to work. Perhaps a bit later.
I'm overwhelmed by this inventory.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's let me walk over the paintings. It will not. That's probably for the best. Okay. Wow. Wow. Oh wow, these are awful. Those are awful. That's awful.
A perfect example of neo-cretinism, a Valmont from his convalescent period. What horrors!
What horrors!
Christ driving the traders from the temple, canvassed by the Spanish master El Greco. What horrors! Looking at this canvas, the French painter must have drawn his inspiration from the famous French cheese camembert. They both stink.
I am here for Snarky Holmes, man, let me tell you.
A perfect example of... The artist of this painting wished to depict the total rejection of aestheticism, and he succeeded. What horrors!
Alright, I think I'm enough of that. Wow. Oh, wait, hold on. I see this one.
Valmont has unusual taste for a painter.
Is it like a cat with a smushed face? And maybe a sunflower? That is so weird. There's a hippopotamus of some kind. Cat and a ladder.
A perfect example.
Yeah, okay. So we get something over here. like right here?
A large red square was painted on the floor, most likely by Lupin, but to what end? Closed.
Closed. Oh my gosh. So exciting. It's closed. More of those footprints. Actually, hold on. Okay. And then the turnarounds. And then go back.
Footprints, look.
This is another thing that is common for these
Size
frogware
10.
games. Is you measure footprints.
This footprint is quite clear, like a footstep pressed. This footprint is quite clear, like a footstep pressed. This footprint is rather light. The man who left these footprints made a return trip. He was carrying something heavy when he climbed the stairs. Paintings, certainly.
Okay, so he was carrying a painting going up, but later going down? Okay, that's interesting. Anyway, let's go back here. Definitely much fresher here.
The person who left these footprints stepped into the paint with his whole foot. Size 10. These footprints are those of common work boots.
Okay. Size 10 can work boots.
It's through there that one of our robbers arrived, and it's also through there that they must have escaped with the help of a ladder. Footprints, look.
And the other thing is that this thing doesn't always work, right?
These footprints are size 9. The foot brushed the paint. Someone wanted to warn the person who made the footprints of the presence of liquid on the ground, but too late. The man then went beneath the louver of the window to get out, probably with the help of a ladder. He was wearing shoes from France with supple leather non-skid soles, which have a distinctive design.
So they kind of stop here.
Ideal to catch by jumping from this skylight. These tools are for restoring paintings. Water.
Oh, good job. Okay, so, looks like someone jumped. Ah, there we go.
It was through the skylights that one of the two robbers came in.
Right. Jumped down, and then they inadvertently stepped on this, so one robber climbed back out this way, second one went this way, and then we've already traced that. So let's see if maybe anything happened here.
It's too dark in here. I don't see anything.
I have to get the lamp for that. Red square here. That's interesting.
Adoration of the Kings by Botticelli, bought by the National Gallery in 1878. Footprints, look.
Uh-huh. I dislike the foot measuring game. It's so finicky. Isn't this exciting? I'm trying to measure.
These footprints are size 9. These are shoes with supple, non-skid leather soles of French manufacture with a distinctive design. These are, without doubt, the shoes of the French painter Horace Velmont.
Velmont was
the footprints
involved.
left by Horace Velmont's shoes and those made by one of the two crooks are absolutely identical. Lupin is a master of disguise.
Yep.
We met him in person yesterday
Called it.
as Velmont.
His bad French accent was disguised a good French accent.
Can I borrow this lamp?
Unfortunately not. This room is poorly lit, and we need it to work. Perhaps a bit later.
Let me check my... 10.5 footprints are a man and someone stepped into some paint in a restoration workshop, curiously stopped at the right-hand side of the museum's entrance. Pieces of least interest were exhibited. Footprints left by the painter Horace Velmont and those made by one of the burglars are completely identical, size 9, supple leather soles, non-skid of French manufacturer, distinctive pattern. Okay. Let's see if we can find something on that side. This is ransacked. Huh. I don't know what's over there.
I have no reason to go there.
Oh, fine then. Why don't you go there anyway? Aha!
It's a combination lock, a French brand. It looks extremely solid. Impossible to open it without knowing the combination.
Okay. Let's see. I don't think I've looked all the way over here yet.
Closed.
That's closed. Looked over there, looked over there. Looked in here.
Closed.
That's closed.
Velmont has unusual taste for an architectural fantasy painted by Van der Heyden. What horrors!
I feel like the... Aha! There it is.
There is something here. A trace of black rubber. 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 These 4 traces of black rubber are identical and form a square.
That's probably what the ladder was. Because this is where the painting was actually taken from. Aha!
There is something strange on the ceiling. I'll have to climb up to examine it, but Lestrade's men are using the ladder. I'll continue to inspect the museum while I await them.
Let's see if there's anything else here.
What horrors! Mr. and Mrs. Andrews by Gainsborough, an unfinished painting. An unrivaled landscape artist, he was obliged to do portraits in order to earn a living. What horrors! What horrors!
What horrors!
What horrors!
What horrors! What horrors indeed.
Ah, Thomas Gainsborough, one of the most famous English portrait and landscape painters. English Painters Hall. What horrors!
What horrors! Huh, okay, so I think we've gotten everything here. Rubber movements. Anything else here? This is definitely, this is kind of like the modern updating of the pixel hunting we saw back in Serrated Scalpel. You remember Serrated Scalpel's a lot of
Closed.
skimming over everything and seeing catch all the stuff, and this is pretty much the 3D equivalent of that. I'm actually gonna switch location and see if maybe it's something I can see differently, because I mean, this is, it has to have the camera view that shows you all the clues, so sometimes switching these views can help. That's one thing I do like about these games, is that by changing the views, you can kind of get a different sense and perspective of everything, even though these camera angles just drive me batty. But sometimes it's very helpful to kind of see things in a different perspective. Do one quick run through again. There was a blue painting that wasn't properly packed up on the wall like the other ones. Okay. Aha! You're right.
What horrors!
And it means nothing. No, it's just a piece of color. Good eye, though. Check over here. Yeah, I think I already checked that already. It's closed.
Closed.
Yeah. Right, this is the area to see those rubber marks.
What horrors!
What the heck is
Hideous,
that?
this painting. A round red frame with some green in the middle. The inspiration behind this canvas is rather queer.
That is unusual.
What horrors! What horrors!
Froggy guys.
What horrors!
Nope.
What horrors!
Nope. I almost feel like I kind of wish I had actually gone through all your paintings now, because now I'm just getting a lot of what horrors.
It's Pointer, the museum director, who's on display here.
Ah.
Amusing.
Yeah, that's actually a fun one I would have probably missed before. Yeah, they did miss a chance for a frog respawn. That's a good one. You're right. Alas, no froggy wares.
A painting by Veronese, the family of Darius before Alexander.
It's also interesting how some of these paintings are really, really crisp and some of them aren't. I'm wondering if it was just a loading issue or something.
What horrors!
You know, like this, perfect shape, and then this is really, really fuzzy. And it's clearly low res fuzzy, not bad painting fuzzy. I mean, it might be a little both in that case, but.
Closed.
Let's see if I actually gets.
It's too dark in here. I don't see anything.
Right, but maybe I can still fumble around and find something. No, I'm definitely gonna pick the lamp. I think I hit that. I might check that out yet.
Closed.
Yeah, that's closed, yep. Don't think I checked this out. It's nothing. Okay. I'm gonna go back to the director, and if that doesn't work, then there's clearly some other small clue I've missed somewhere. We are out of the era of, like with the thread scalpel. You remember there's a lot of, it just says, you figure it out. We'll have everything open. These are going to be much more directed experiences. It's not going to let me leave this area until I find everything here. So this is going to be, just keep searching this area.
Can I borrow this lamp?
Unfortunately not. This
Yeah.
room...
Okay.
What do you want, Mr. Holmes? The only one who will be happy is Velmont. His paintings now have the best spots.
I'd wager he's doubly happy, but he'd never come to show his gratitude in person.
Ah, and when will you be done with your investigation, so that we can put the paintings back in their original places?
A deadline will soon be set, I think. However, it is in our best interest to do it as quickly as possible. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good. We'll be here if you have any further questions. Come, Palinor, back to the inventory.
Mr. Holmes, Inspector Lestrade wanted you to know that we no longer need the ladder. If you want it, it's near the director's office.
You mean the place I'm in right now? The office I'm right in here right now? And I get it. That could have happened anywhere. The policeman will just show up and spawn, but it's still kind of silly. Alright. Oh, actually, hold on. I don't need to do this. Inventory, ladder, there. That's there's a little cheat there that happens that it's something that once you see it in video games you can't unsee it. Rather than create an animation of Holmes manufacturing a ladder from somewhere in his inventory, unfolding and setting it down, it just kind of goes to black and comes back, and suddenly the ladder's there. You'll see a lot of animation cheats like that, just in games in period, particularly for animations that you don't see constantly if it's a one-off thing. Usually you have some form of generic animation, and then poof, it appears. A good example of that actually is Animal Crossing, because it's such a diverse and expansive game. So you see lots of placeholder animations, or not placeholder, but the same animation that represents a lot of different things, and also icons that as opposed to having a picture of the item, have kind of a generic icon. Yeah, another example Jay Gray puts out is you don't see actually someone put something in someone's hands, because that's really hard to animate, I've learned. So rather, it's you'll see someone reaching out, and then a camera cut, and someone pulling it back. Oh, there's something in my hand. You never actually see the handoff. That's actually a really, really hard animation thing to do. So they'll cut around it. They'll obfuscate it. You'll see the handoff happen below the frame of the screen. Whatever. Let's see if we get a climbing animation. We will not. We will cut to the 3D, so we can not have to do that.
Elementary.
If your initials are JL, the answer is yes. What? If not, greetings, Mr. Holmes. Our meeting yesterday was far too brief, but I bet it won't be the last. It gives me great happiness that you are participating in this adventure, and even if the ending gives you displeasure, you'll have been in the first row for the whole show. Please inform Inspector Lestrade, as you know, but contrary to his belief, I most certainly came in through the entrance. I always enter through the main doors, always leave, although leaving is a different matter. But enough of the past, look ahead, shall we? After tonight, I will yet again still wear the emblems of England's pride. My next target can be found somewhere in London, and it is up to you to identify it before I claim it. For this, I have left you several clues throughout the museum. A mind as brilliant as yours, you have no trouble finding and interpreting them. But will you be able to finish in time? To start, I've left some paintings on the walls I didn't have the heart to replace with those from my personal collection. In observing them well and reading the following poem, you have all the information necessary to determine the location where I spent yesterday afternoon and early evening. A small bit of advice, do not break into the place. Do not break into the place? That's a very weird place. A painting of great value is inside and you will ruin it. In the museum did I go that night, and there did I see Venus and Mars wrapped in white. A rainy day they arrived with much delight, that year without doubt remember with all might. A tired horseman was sleeping near there without fear, his white horse standing tall and whispered in my ear, My lord, we were painted long ago, that is clear. Truthfully, my second choice, sir, was that year. Hendrik has been dead for ages, I won't be coy. His skaters, young couples, men, women, here a boy. They were his work, will they but duty or his joy? The length of his life is my third part, or the ploy. My fourth is the year of purchase, I swear. Fishing, cabbage, young boy and angel, quite a pair. First minus second, then times third, do you care? Minus the fourth, figure it out and you'll be there.
This poem by Lupin surely makes reference to 4 paintings presently hanging in the museum. Shall we begin our search?
We shall not, actually. We are getting close to 10 o'clock, so I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I need to leave the ladder first, apparently, before I do that. But yeah, next week we can pick up from that point. We can look at try to find those 4 paintings. Look at the clue again. But otherwise, it has been good to be back in the saddle, honestly. It's been nice to get back in doing this again. This is... the riddles and whatnot are going to be a constant thing. This is going to be tricky, and the answering questions is going to be irritating. But honestly, we got pretty far today, and I'm pretty happy with that. So, as always, I love that you guys come and hang out with me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all next week. Take care.